The Michigan teenager accused of killing 4 classmates will make his first court appearance on Monday. 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley is charged with several counts of first-degree murder, terrorism, and assault for the rampage at Oxford High School near Detroit. Police also arrested his parents, James and Jennifer Crumbley. They are charged with involuntary manslaughter. Authorities say the couple purchased the 9mm semi-automatic handgun used in the shootings and ignored warnings from the school to get their son help. Now, the parents of the 2 students who survived the shooting are suing the school district and its officials. They say counselors, teachers, and school administrators failed to prevent the shooting even after they acknowledged Crumbley showed troubling behavior. The lawsuit seeks $100 million in damages. The families in Michigan are not alone in dealing with this type of tragedy. Education Week reports 31 school shootings in the United States this year. For more about school shootings, I want to bring in Dewey Cornell. He is a professor of education at the University of Virginia. Professor Cornell, there's a lot of hand-wringing, there's a lot of thoughts and prayers, but people want more than we've had so far. What role do educators and students and teachers all play potentially in trying to better prevent these types of school shootings?
Well, thank you for having me. Everyone has a role in preventing violence, but I think it starts with getting some perspective. School shootings are terribly traumatic, devastating events. We want to eliminate them if at all possible. But there's an element of fear that can be a barrier, can be a problem. You know, after an airline crash, we're all sort of worried about flying in an airplane. And the airline industry reminds us that flying is safer than driving. And even though school shootings are terribly tragic, I think it's important to remember that schools are a very safe place, that children are much safer in a school building than they are outside of a school building. We do have a serious problem with gun violence, but for every shooting in a school, there's 1,000 or more shootings outside of schools. So with that said, we need to think about how can we keep our schools safe. And as you mentioned, educators, parents, and teachers all have a role to play.
Well, let's talk about the role of parents. In the case of the Michigan school shooter, the parents have been charged in part for purchasing the handgun that their son allegedly used in the attack. The gun, rather, I should say, without getting into the specifics of that particular case, because we know you're not a legal authority on this, but what general responsibilities do parents have in making sure that their child doesn't pose a threat to people?
Well, parents, of course, have primary responsibility for raising their children, and they need to work collaboratively with schools. And they need to work preventively, proactively. When a child is being bullied and harassed at school, when a child is having prolonged learning difficulties or other kinds of emotional difficulties at school, they need to work collaboratively with educators. And when that partnership breaks down, when there's a lack of communication, that's when things can spiral out of control. But we really emphasize in our approach identifying problems early, intervening early, long before the student shows up with a gun.
Professor Cornell, what can schools be doing to better detect potentially violent students?
Well, schools need to abandon the old method of zero tolerance, which was you just remove the child from school and hope that somebody in the community can fix the problem. That method does not work. It doesn't make schools safer. It doesn't improve student behavior. But about 20 years ago, law enforcement agencies and education authorities began to emphasize the use of threat assessment. Now, threat assessment may sound a little ominous, but really what it means is safety first. What it means is working with students whenever they engage in threatening behavior or make a threatening statement to try to understand how serious is the threat and to act preventively and proactively to address the underlying problem.
Professor Cornell, I imagine that there's also a worry about school officials going too far in trying to detect or prevent violent behavior. How did those get balanced?
Well, of course, if they rely on zero tolerance, they will likely overreact. There are many, many students who make threatening statements that are not serious. They don't have a serious intent, and they can easily overreact and remove those kids from school or have them arrested. So schools have to worry about two different kinds of errors. They don't want to overreact to the threat that's not serious, a 10-year-old saying, I'm sick of this school, I'm going to blow it up. And they don't want to underreact to the more ominous, serious threat, which is rare, but of course we do have them. So threat assessment is a systematic way for schools to gather information from multiple sources as a multidisciplinary team, assess the seriousness. They try to identify the conflict or problem underlying the threat and resolve that. If a child is being bullied, if a child is having academic problems, a child is having emotional problems, whatever the underlying problem or difficulty might be, we want to identify that early, long before there's a plan or preparation to carry out a shooting. Schools across the United States are using threat assessment. Many states have mandated that every school have a threat assessment team. And if we use threat assessment in a fair and systematic way, we can go a long way to avoiding both the overreactions and underreactions.
All right, Professor Dewey Cornell, thank you.
Thank you very much.